recent developments in construction law in China. There are three aspects to this topic. Can I change this slide? The first one is the trend to apply, case law in legal practice in China. And as all you know, China has been a typical statute law jurisdiction, and there was no case law tradition in our legislation and practice. However, in the past 5 years, the situation has been changed a little bit. Though the statute laws will still play the most important role in our legal business, but the judicial precedents has begun to play a more and more role in this market. One of the two essential changes to the Chinese legislation system is the introduction of directive cases by the Supreme Court in 2010. To date, the Supreme Court has issued more than 50 directive cases covering civil, commercial, administrative, and even criminal cases. These directive cases have binding forces on all level courts in China. However, compared to the directive cases in person, I think a more influential change is the Supreme Court's requirement for all the court's judgment to be published through an official website. I think that's even more important. This policy is from, I think, 2014. This change triggered not only more precedents referred to in both, litigation and arbitration in China, but also more statistic analysis based on the millions of cases suddenly booming in this market. Consequently, a new industry compounded with law and IT technology has emerged and developed in a very, very rapid growth in recent 2 years. And this will substantially change, actually has changed, the legal business in many ways as to acquire knowledge, create and deliver the service values to the clients. In terms of the construction sector, as you know, the construction law has been recognized as one of the most complicated sector in the legal business. This is also the case in China. However, the construction law of China has long been focused on the administrative aspect other than the commercial aspect. So as a result, the relevant legislation has been much less developed than the numerous various practices in China. Under such circumstances, the relevant judgments issued, published by the courts, especially by high courts and the Supreme Court, will fill many blanks of the statute laws. So that's the first topic. And let's go to the next one. The next one is about the changes to forms of contract in China. In China, it has always been the government bodies, other than the social associations, which organize the drafting and the issue of the contract forms. Among all the ministries, it is more often for a foreigner to do with those contracts issued by the former Ministry of Construction. It has a new name, but I use MOC as a abbreviation. It has issued 2 new contract forms in recent 3 to 5 years. The first one is the sample form of contract for construction. As the replacement of the old version published in 1999, this new version has been becoming the most popular form of construction contract in China. This new version is mainly based on the new Red Book, but involves more specific provisions relating to more detailed payment regime and various bearing clauses. Very different from telecoms, much more bearing clauses, both on contractor and employers. Second, the first sample form of contract for EPC project was issued at the end of 2011. Interesting, most drafting members of the committee are reputable engineers rather than lawyers. So as a result, at least in my opinion, this form of contract is more like a contract management rather than a contract form. But every cloud has silver lining. The current version seems not a bad thing to the lawyers because you can easily find your value when interpreting the contract. Okay, let's go to the next important government body, the National Development and Reform Commission. In the past 10 years, this government body has played an even much more important role than the other ministries in the development of the construction forms in China. In recent 5 years, the most important work which the Commission has done is to issue the first standard bidding document for design-build projects in China. This SDD, standard bidding document, is mainly based on the new Yellow Book. Okay, considering the construction law of China is still generally based on the traditional design, bidding and build, what we call the DBB procurement approach. And there are few legal provisions especially designed for this design-build approach. So the issue of this standard bidding document has been a big milestone for the development of the DB or EPC projects in China. The next slide is some practical suggestions for you to consider when you using formal contract or choosing a formal contract in China. I'd like to skip to the next topic about some key legal issues in EPC projects in China. As you know, because of the absence of specific rules on EPC contracts, so there are lots of interesting thorny issues arising from the practice. Considering the time constraints, I'd like to share 2 points with you. The first point, just like our moderator is the qualification certificate for the EPC projects. Okay, it is always the problem, what kind of certificate required to enter into the EPC market. One point is that based on some lower level regulations, either a design certificate or construction certificate could be enough, but there are still other very strong arguments based on some high level regulations. Argue that there must be there must be both the 2,000 certificates. So in practice, the most safest way is to approach in a joint venture form with both certificates. Okay, the second point which I would like to draw your attention is the design responsibility between the employer and the contractor. Let's take this project in Shanghai, Shanghai World Financial Center, for example. It is invested by Japanese entities and carried out by China State and Shanghai, the joint venture. Okay, in this project, the Red Book was used and the employer agreed to provide the so-called construction drawings in accordance with the contract. And the contractor is responsible for the workshop drawings. The contractor thought the construction drawings should be the same with what they are familiar in the practice in China, but the fact was that the depth of the construction drawings delivered by the employer only equal to 1/5 of what the contractor expected. But in this case, the employer did have fulfilled its obligations in accordance with the contract. More specification in the contract. So that's a very typical issue in such kind of project. So this is not a new issue in the international construction law practice. We can see many details from like the Keating construction contracts talking about such issue. But in China, considering the development stage of EPC approach, a foreign entity and consultant should pay more attention to any issues relating to design responsibility, such as fitness for purpose, employers, the EPC contractors' freedom of choice. Needless to say, other issues our speakers have talked about, like site data and adverse physical conditions and ground information, etc. Okay, lastly, let's go back to the most important development in construction market, construction law in China. As one of the largest construction market in the world, China has always been trying to learn, adopt, and keep up with the international good practices in construction law and forms of contract. In order to consist with the rapid growth of this market and resolve the lack of the statutory laws, by applying case law approach to some extent in practice, we can anticipate that the construction law in China will develop faster, even faster, and contribute more to the international society of construction law. Thanks.